Y'all might be surprised at how many honeymoons I've planned. And then the couple comes back to me 2 to 5 years later and they say, we're ready to plan what will probably be our last trip before we start a family or we're pregnant and we want to plan our baby moon. And I love that. It is such a full circle moment. And one of my favorite things is getting to work with couples time and time again. But I will ask them where they've traveled since the honeymoon, and you'd be shocked at how many times the answer is, we actually haven't gone on a vacation since the honeymoon 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Life just got so busy. And I get that. I know how life gets so busy. And I know that finances, of course, play into your frequency of travel and how much of a privilege it is just to be able to take a short, quick, long weekend somewhere. But I also know the statistics about how many Americans don't use their vacation days every single year, and that you do not have to be planning a wedding or starting a family or even be married at all to prioritize traveling in your relationship. So that's why, in this episode, we are giving you an excuse to plan your anniversary trip. Joining me this week in conversation are the Maddies. So, Be the Travel Advisor, Maddie Baldwin is from Maysville, Georgia, and she's currently living in Nashville. Since joining the team, Maddie has naturally took to planning trips for multi-gen families and couples who are just wanting to embrace the magic of an experience together. Some of her favorite destinations to plan for have been Switzerland, Yellowstone, and anywhere tropical. Travel's always been a huge part of Maddie's story, and she's super excited to talk about the impact and importance it has in her relationship. Also joining us is Be the Travel Advisor, Maddie Curlew, who's living in Colorado. She's been on the Be the Travel team since August and has planned romance-based travel for clients across the world, but some of her favorite places have been Italy, Central America, and the Southwest. Today, the three of us are going to be talking about why you have to prioritize an anniversary trip, an anniversary of literally any moment in time in 2022. The day you met, the day you started dating, the day you got married, whatever it is. If you have been looking for a sign or an excuse to plan a trip, this is it. Use your anniversary date as your excuse, put it on the calendar, and bring the trip to life. So listen in to hear why. I'm Bailey White, and in 2018, I founded Be the Travel, a modern-day travel agency on a mission to rehumanize your travel planning experience. Our team of travel advisors are so passionate about bringing what you've been dreaming of being out in the world to life. Here on the Be the Travel podcast, you can count on us to share all things travel advising. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful and breathtaking, the planning hacks and how-tos, our hard-earned experiences, and more. No matter where in the world you're tuning in from, we are so glad you're here. So there is so much more that goes into our jobs and the skill set that's needed to be a travel advisor other than the love of travel. But of course, like a love for travel is definitely part of it. And I actually remember like when we were chatting during like the interview phase, Maddie, and I asked you just like about your passion for travel. And then you went into a story about like a weekend getaway that you took with Scott, your boyfriend, and why that was like such a like it was like a simple trip, but it had a really big purpose in your life. And do you mind sharing about that and like kind of jumping us into the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott and I live in a very small town, in a very small house, not much to do. Every relationship kind of ebbs and flows. And so you combine, natural ups and downs of relationships with living in a super small town, kind of getting cabin fever during the winter, and like just living through all of that during a pandemic. We just kind of like started to go crazy. We started to feel more like roommates than partners. And we decided around Christmas, let's not do presents. Like, we have everything we need. It's silly to spend a bunch of money on material things. Let's instead like do things together, go places together. And so we started going on these little trips over the weekend, like just quick little getaways, driving distance from where we live. And it like totally changed our relationship. Like obviously not like overnight, but like after our first one, we were like, oh my God, that was awesome. Like it was so nice to just get out of the house, be together, you know, because it's so easy to just like get in a routine and you wake up and you go to work and you come home and then you sit on the couch and watch TV and like you don't really connect or have a conversation. You just kind of go through the motions of every day. And so I think like the baseline of like going somewhere just kind of gets you out of that like routine of going through the motions, which was huge for us.
Yeah. Was it the wise Jimmy Buffett that said changes in latitude, changes in attitude?
Exactly. He's so
No, that's actually when you were talking, that's actually what popped into my head, but it's so true. Like I think that when people think traveling with their partner or like romantic travel, that it has to be this like big elaborate thing, and that's not the case at all. Like
right.
it's so important just to get away with your partner, even if it's just a small weekend trip. Like it can have a big impact in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this year, actually, about a month ago, we went to Telluride to celebrate our anniversary, like a month and a half late. And it's like the shoulder season in Telluride, like a bunch of places were closed and like the ski area wasn't even open. So there was like not much to do. And we still had such a blast just like being together.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes that's it's like the most simple things are the most important things ever. Um, Maddie, I know that something that I love about you and your story is that you have like a really unique background and that your parents taught you a lot about happiness during hard times in life and used travel as a literal vehicle in the teaching moment. um, a vehicle like an actual RV, which is a really cool story, maybe for another podcast actually. But I say all that to like you get it, like you really understand like life and happiness and travel and how it's all like beautifully intertwined, and I'm really curious to hear actually like how that's played an important role in your relationship with Sam.
Well, yes. So the RV movie was my life for a little bit, and it shaped it fully for better or for worse. And I'm very grateful to have that experience, but to also carry that start of a journey for me, because I was in eighth grade, into the journey of my life and my relationship. And so, ironically, Sam and I would not exist without travel. Because I met her mom and I just took a random trip. I was like, I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone. I need to shed some layers and I'm gonna go to Water Island. And I actually met her mom there. And then I flew down to New Orleans to meet Lori from Mardi Gras, and Sam flew in, and that's actually how we met. So all of it has been travel. Um, I was actually thinking about that today going on to this. It just hit me. I was like, not only is travel so crucial to our relationship now, it would not exist without it. And I think in a way, travel has been, and the lessons that I got from my parents have created this like fluid motion in Sam and I's relationship that allows us to grow together a lot of ways, because it's kind of like you were saying, Maddie, like you just changing that energy, but also that energy is constantly in our relationship, because from the beginning we were long distance. I was in California, and then we took a road trip and brought me back to New Orleans. And so we stopped in Santa Fe, we stopped in Sedona, even Little Rock, Arkansas, and brought me back. And so I feel like a lot of it, our entire relationship has been travel, and also like probably a little too much moving. Um, so we are actually, in the way that it is shaped Sam and I, it is something we built into our
Yeah,
foundation. Whether it built us or we built it in, it is like entirely how we've kind of grown
yeah,
together. And I think it's very important to look. I was thinking about today, like how relationships and travel are so important. And it was a lot about what Maddie was saying of, or Jimmy Buffett. But but we get so, and especially with quarantine, because Sam and I were discussing, we actually haven't taken a trip in a while. And yet our entire beginning part of our relationship was
yeah.
trips and moving. But I don't know, I'm gonna sound like my dad here, so maybe this is what I'm bringing from it. But, we all get bogged down in our life like air filters.
Hmm.
This is where dad comes in. But, in taking that trip and with your relationship, with your significant other, and basically cleaning out the air filters. And I think a lot of times, especially during COVID, we took on so many different roles, partners, roommates, coworkers in the same house.
Mhm.
And those roles kind of like leave a shell on you, like a residue, dust, whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
And then when you go out and you just switch it up, you're just like, let that go and you get to breathe and grow together again. So I got a little off tangent there,
Oh,
but at the same time,
lesson learned. I mean, we can just like stop recording now. Like this is actually like literally beautiful. And when you were talking about, I got goosebumps because I didn't know that's how you met Sam. I don't know why I thought you guys met at school. So tell me more about about that. And then I guess you guys were long distance, and then the first time that you really spent time together was during travel. Like, back it up and unpack that for a sec.
okay, sorry. So I was going into my senior year, and Water Island, for those who didn't know, like me, is a small island off of St. Thomas. It literally has one restaurant and no gas station. So it's beautiful. It's been a part of my heart ever since. And to add a little tidbit there, my parents are actually going there for their
Oh,
anniversary
fun.
trip right now. But so it's just been a part of our lives ever since. But I met her mom there, because we were doing the same workaway program, and that's where I went down there for. And, it's kinda that amazing part of travel that exists is where you meet these perfect strangers and you tell them your life story because you never expect to see them
Mhm.
again, and it allows this vulnerability that we put, like, a hard shell towards in our daily lives. And so, I literally looked at her mom and I said, "Lori," I said, "I'll never see you again, so it was nice knowing you." Well, I eat those words every single day of my life.
Yeah.
But, um so about I went into my senior year and Lori took another workaway program in New Orleans and she was like, Ole Miss is right there. So she was like, come down for Mardi Gras. And then Sam decided to fly in. We both didn't know that the other was going to be there. And she was living in Colorado at the time. And actually, I don't know if it was voodoo or whatnot, but here we are 4 years later, and that's actually how we met. And Sam quickly moved to New Orleans after that trip. I don't know what that's about, but apparently for me. And and I finished up at Ole Miss, and I actually had already signed up for a job in California. So we started very long distance. And I moved out to California, she stayed in New Orleans. She would actually do the same thing, we'd, like you call it a small weekend trip, but no small weekend trip is to California, but she would do that, and that's kind of how we built our relationship, which is a backwards way of doing it, a difficult way sometimes, but we built it in travel, and then I said, "Hey, they're charging me for cheese out here in California. I need to come back to the South." And we just created a road trip. And actually, the first time we were living in the same place was in New Orleans. And we just travel has literally brought us together and brought me back to the South and just built our relationship. And by happen chance or fate, whatever you want to do, I met her mom on a small island. And then here we are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I love so much about that story and also what you were saying in that in COVID, we took on all these different roles. I wasn't expecting this conversation to go this way, but it's so true. Like during the pandemic, there's a lot of together time, and you learn a lot about one another as you take on all these different roles, roommates, coworkers, keeping the romance alive while you're stuck inside for months and months on end. And you learn a lot about yourself there. But you know what? You also learn about yourself and your spouse and y'all as a relationship, like as a unit during travel too, which I think is another really, really important reason why it's important to prioritize travel in a relationship. So like, okay, so like I actually prefer traveling alone. I guess that's just like the travel agent in me, but like I like flying through airport lines and like not waiting on anyone and feeling like nobody's waiting on me, and it's just easier to navigate crowds and all the things. But what I love about traveling with Slade is that it's taught me so much about our relationship. So like when we travel, we like to do like a lot of adventure and stuff. We've done like some really cool things together, like skydiving and biking the Tuscan Hills, and something that we always like to do when we travel is hike. And I think it's funny how, like, over the years, I've actually noticed that we handle really big, strenuous hikes really similarly to how we handle like challenges in life. And I didn't notice that. And I didn't like, I don't know, it just made me understand us and like the way that we operate better than I would have just after taking note of like different life challenges. Like, okay, so like for example, do you guys know what Havasupai is in the Grand Canyon?
Mhm.
Yeah. So for anyone that's not listening or that's listening that doesn't know what Havasupai is, it's this like you've probably seen it on Instagram, but it's like this Indian reservation in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and it has like turquoise blue waterfall. It's like it's otherworldly. I have a blog about it, so we can link that in the show notes. But the first mile into the canyon, have you guys done it?
I have
No.
not.
Okay. The first mile into the canyon, you descend 1,000 feet. So it's like 1 mile, 1,000. I mean, it's pretty steep. And then the last mile on your way out, you're climbing up 1,000 feet after you've already done 9 miles out of the Grand Canyon in the desert climate. So it's like, it's a lot. And I remember when we were climbing out of the Grand Canyon, exhausted, we'd been camping for like 2 or 3 nights. I don't remember how many nights we stayed in there, but we were like at the bottom looking up at that last mile. And in that moment, I looking back, it's so clear now because I've as we've like gone through life together, I've learned that this is exactly how we handle life challenges. But like, I immediately go into positivity mode. So like, I will literally look at Slade, and Slade will always start something like that he knows is about to be hard, and he'll just be like, "This is about to suck," and he dreads it from the jump, and I'm the one that's like, no, 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 like, we've got this. It's only gonna suck if you think it's gonna suck, and if you think that it's gonna be fine, then it's gonna be fine. And like, don't think that way. It's gonna be a great memory, and it's just gonna be like an opportunity for us to learn something and challenge ourselves. And like, I'm just like positive. And right around the time that I hit my breaking point, which is normally like 3/4 of the way up or like 3/4 of the way done, that's when I'm like, we're gonna die. Like, we're like, we're not gonna finish this. And like, I will cry. And it's like a whole production, and it's a way bigger deal than Slade's original, like, oh, this is about to suck, like, type situation. But that's always when Slade will like see how close we actually are to the finish line. And like, that's when he like, we almost like shift, like, then he puts all the weight on his back. And like, literally when we were climbing out of Havasupai, he carried all of our gear probably the last like quarter mile. Like, he put my backpack on his front, he had his on his back, all of our gear, all of the water, like everything, and then like basically like pushed me up like the last bit. So when I was thinking about like reasons of like why you need to prioritize an anniversary trip this year, like, that's a really big reason for me, is you learn a lot about like your partner and how they operate in real life situations, and like how you guys work together as a unit. It's like, it's really cool.
No, completely agree. And I think it's important. Like, we're all pretty young here, you know. We feel old some days, but we're all pretty,
Yeah.
we're all pretty young. And my parents still say that, and I'm not calling them old, but they're they're up there, and they still say they're always learning new things, and especially in travel, and they just get to be young. So
Yeah.
I think it's so important to keep doing it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Maddie, what's been your the best trip you and Scott have ever taken together?
Best trip we've ever taken together. So our relationship has started like right at the beginning of COVID. We were long distance for a while. So like once we actually like were together is when COVID started. So unfortunately we haven't taken too many like spectacular trips. But I think that my favorite trip that we've ever gone on, we actually went to Nashville while we were long distance. Kind of like definitely not met in the middle because it was a lot closer for me. But we met in Nashville, and that's where we like officially started dating. And we just had so much fun. Like, we had both been to Nashville before and like had done the whole Broadway thing and all that jazz. And so we kind of just like found like off the beaten path Nashville things to do, and we went to a little concert at the Ryman and like hung out in this sports bar, and it was just so much fun. Like especially being apart for so long, finally like being together was awesome for us, but like I have never thought of like, oh, Nashville's like the greatest place on earth. We kind of were just like, oh, we'll meet in Nashville, whatever. And it turned out to be like the best weekend we've had. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, because Nashville's the greatest, but
Nashville
no.
is the greatest.
I mean, no, I know what you mean though.
Yeah.
Like it's not about how big or small the trip is. It's about the memories that you're making. And I was actually getting my ring fixed. I say fixed. It wasn't broken. I just got pregnant and it didn't fit anymore. And that's what happens. But I was getting my ring fixed a couple weeks ago, and I was standing there like talking to the lady, and there was this other like really young couple that was the only other couple in the store, and they were picking out the guy's wedding band, and they were like really young and like beaming, like
Oh.
oh my gosh, like I could feel their happiness, and they were just like having the best time ever picking out this guy's ring. And I was like kind of just like watching them, and then I asked the lady that I was talking to that worked there, I was like, is this like one of the best parts about your job, like just like being able to see like these special moments with other couples? And she like lit up and was telling me like, yes, of course, like she had actually bought her ring like 16 years ago with her husband there, and it was just like it's a full circle thing, and she's so excited that she gets to be part of like these moments with couples. But then she kind of laughed and she went on this tangent about how like social media has changed things over the years, and how like now these girls come in and want like 3 and 4 carat diamond rings. And she's like, okay, like sometimes I feel like these girls can forget, like, yeah, we all want something sparkly, but what's important in life is not that. And like somebody could snatch a ring off your finger in a second. And she was like, you can't take it with you when you go. And she like said it as she was walking away, like to go get my ring or something. And it honestly made me think for a second, because I was like, you know what? Like what we do and like our jobs with people, like you actually do get to take that with you when you go. And like we sell travel and the trip lasts a week or two. Yeah. And then it's over. But like we're actually selling memories that you take with you like for years and years and years, which is like the coolest thing ever.
Just the way that, we were talking about earlier, travel's been woven into Sam and I's relationship. I just think about we are the ones like passing that thread now. And that, that's not a hair flip or anything like that. It's really cool to be a part of something that is shaping a relationship or shaping a family, and just that carries in, that gives that like extra ring around the tree, if you want to again quote my father. But I just think we are so blessed to be a part of something so magical every day. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. It's true. Like we actually have like I feel like one of our canned emails. Oh, I'm giving a little behind the scenes. Literally says it's an honor that you like like allowed us to help you plan this trip. But it's true in every single case. Like it's an honor. But I feel like especially like romance trips. Again, it doesn't have to be a wedding. It doesn't have to be a whatever. But like any kind of romance travel is an honor, because it's such a special memory for a couple. And like the fact that we get invited into those intimate trip details is just like really really cool. And it is an honor. Like it's so cool to be able to help people plan, like I don't know, these just like really incredible memories.
well, even like on a bee discovery call, which I don't know the behind the scenes too, but just to hear
Yeah.
them giggle back and forth over their little things and how they actually operate ahead of time, like you were saying, it reflects, you and Slade's relationship and how you operate. But you can hear it in the phone call, and I had several where the part like she'll be like, I'm actually in control of this, but he's here for moral support, and like they'll just giggle, and that I think is just such a magical thing to be
Yeah.
a part of. But
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so now I just like I feel like I'm gonna go and plan a trip now for me and Slade, because I feel inspired. But I want to ask you guys like one last question. I guess it's like, if you had to sum up your personal top number one reason that people have got to prioritize an anniversary trip of any kind in 2022, what would you guys say that is?
I got you. So I'm gonna just draw back to what I originally said, which is we always do it, but especially these last 2 years, we've added so many layers and just like, I guess, heaviness to our lives, and that affects our relationships so much. And so people need to get out there and travel together to shed those layers and get back to each other. I think it's funny that we were quarantined, but I feel like we lost a lot of that connection, and actually being out there and moving and in a different space is bringing us back together again. And I think relationships really need that right now. So that's my most important reason to go out there, just clean the filter basically and get back to each other.
Yeah, it's like we've been together so much that we need to go be together, but somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. So to kind of piggyback off of what Maddie said, if you take a step back and look at the past 2 years, like we would have never thought that we would be living like in this world. Like I think that puts into perspective like what is really important and what you should be prioritizing. And like for me personally, it's been Scott, my partner, my family, my friends, and just investing that time into each other, that's priceless, you know?
It is. I feel inspired just by talking to you guys, and I hope that anyone listening also feels the same way. So I always say this, but like if you guys planning travel with your partner, prioritizing an anniversary trip in 2022 is so important, whether or not Be the Travel is involved in that or not. I really do believe that. That's not just like blowing smoke. It's true. It's important, and it's something that I personally feel like really passionate about. But if you guys did want to have someone at Be the Travel help you guys plan, you can always go to bethetravel.com/start to get started planning any trip, romance travel or not. And if you guys want to follow along with either of the Maddies on their journey just in life and as travel advisors, where can they find you guys if they want to follow along or reach out to plan a trip?
So you can follow me on Instagram at she.went.where. That's my travel Instagram page.
Yes, and I'm gonna be Instagram as well, and that's gonna be Maddie, Maddy, B exploring. And also just you can email me at maddiebethetravel.com if you just want to go ahead and get started.
Maddie B is Maddie Maddy, and Maddie Curlew is Maddie, both at bethetravel.com. So if you guys want to get into planning some romance travel with them, you can definitely reach out there.